What's up, everybody? It's me, Critical. I'm here to talk about the Magic the Gathering situation. Actually, no, I'm not doing that whole bit. Anyways, yeah, we're gonna do a little talk today about Magic the Gathering. Now, the Gathering without Magic. We're gonna talk about Magic the Gathering's downfall here and how indie can kind of reshape the TCG world. Yeah, let's get started. So, part one, Master Sets. When Master Sets come out for the first time, I thought it was really awesome because I was a Modern player and I really wanted to build some decks for Modern. And at first, I thought this was a really good idea moving forward. You're going to see why I don't think it was here in a second. So, the first major shift kind of came with the Master Sets. These premium reprint products were kind of marketed as a celebration of Magic's history and kind of got cards that were pretty old back into the hands of players that needed them. But maybe they didn't play when Future Sight block came out. Planar Chaos. One of those sets. It's a long time ago. Time Spiral, I believe, is the name of the actual block. And maybe you didn't get your Tarmogoyf back then. Tarmogoyf wasn't even considered all that good, and a lot of time. And then people realized it was really good. It blew up, became a very expensive rare. This was before Mythics, and that card exploded in popularity. One of the best cards in Modern. But I kind of tested how far Wizards could push pricing and product saturation and kind of see what they could do with the secondary market in the modern era. But yeah, so Modern Masters in 2013 kind of introduced high demand reprints of inflated prices. And then, we got Ultimate Masters in 2018 that kind of pushed the prices to like $14 a pack. And this was times like back in 2013, you could buy a booster pack at least in my LGSs for like $3. And at the time in Modern Masters, a pack of Modern Masters was like $7, $8 even back then. But yeah, so eventually Commander Masters, and just a couple years ago, was pushing about $15, $16 a pack for the set packs, and it was only really focused on multiplayer and Commander, but it also had new cards in it, which kind of were, shaking up, making the format more explosive, but not just more explosive, more expensive, and certainly not really focusing on putting the cards in hands of players by making them more affordable, and certainly not really caring about kind of the balance of the power dynamic in Commander as it existed. So Master Sets pretty much normalized high cost, limited run releases. With the original Modern Masters, every pack had a foil in it, and this kind of started that trend of kind of eroding foils as being like something cool to get, that maybe you can get a few foils for your deck, when you open some packs and stuff, or just trade. And maybe that was the start of the collector bait. And it was kind of designed for kind of like spectacle and FOMO, especially starting with Commander Masters. It wasn't really all that focused on format health or player accessibility. And while at the time I thought maybe the price being high for master sets was kind of justified given the cards in them, I kind of greatly misunderstood the future of where this could take Magic moving forward because it was starting to change Magic the Gathering from a game to kind of like a collectible product. Next, we have part two, Modern Horizons. I'm sure a lot of you that played Magic, especially Modern, will get a pretty interesting feeling talking about Modern Horizons. So, Modern Horizons kind of took the monetization blueprint that Master Sets kind of invented and injected it directly into internal formats. These sets bypass standard and introduced new cards pretty much directly into Modern, Legacy, and even Vintage. But sometime passed, and somehow they made it into basically a rotation for the modern format. Even though it was a evergreen, not evergreen, but like ever present format with no rotation, the power creep is just so insane that it actually started pushing lots of cards out. In Modern Horizons 1, we got Renin 6, Force of Negation, Hogak, just cards that completely warped formats and triggered bans, like, almost immediately. But not really. There was just, everybody remembers the whole season was completely ruined by things like Hogak, and then Modern Horizons 2, we got good old Ragavan, Urza's Saga, Grief, pretty much the Evoke Elementals in general. Cards that basically dominate multiple formats. We got Modern Horizons 3 in 2024. That's not that long ago. It feels like it was yesterday. We had the whole Nadu Winged Wisdom who messed up so much stuff. It was like banned within months for its format warping power. And with a design around Commander first and a non-Commander set, it's kind of an issue we were going to tackle soon. In the later slide, we'll get to that. But yeah, Modern Horizons pretty much proved that Wizards could print format for impact. Cards weren't really designed to support previous archetypes or reprint current needs of those decks. They were designed pretty much to power creep and change the deck lists, which pretty much resulted in format homogenization, escalating costs to compete in the format. You're basically removing the strategic depth and replaced by brute force. The meta, everything's so cost effective. You can just it just brings everything down to a lower level, mana cost wise, speeding up the games. Just kind of like the text boxes and effects are just so much better than they used to be. So you just brute force all the old decks out of the format because they can't even compete, tempo for tempo. And basically, it rotating modern, as I said, uh, which became even more apparent when Modern Horizons 2 and Modern Horizons 3 came out. And I think that's when it really, really, really sparked that discussion about how it's now a rotating format. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Modern Horizons 4 will exist probably next year, even if they end up calling it something else, unfortunately. It may even just be a Universes Beyond set. And well, I'll talk about that, you can bet. But yeah, so deck diversity basically shrank, innovation became limited and stagnated, and the cost to play the format that was understood to be kind of non-rotating was worse than ever. They don't really want you playing with the cards you already have. Part 3, too much product. Too many sets, power creep, player dissatisfaction, and, the elephant in the room, as you can see on the screen. We'll talk about a little bit later. So as power levels rose, so did the volume. Wizards kind of began releasing more products than players could absorb, especially for standard players. In 2022 alone, they released 22 major products, over 70 secret layer drops. In 2024, you know, alone, they printed over 2,000 new cards, which is pretty much more than ever to date. And I wouldn't be surprised if the math for 2025 blows that out of the water. This relentless pace has basically led to an information overload, wallet fatigue from players. The secondary market for any singles that aren't something out of a collector booster, super high chase card is basically destroyed. So I hate to say it, but you basically can't open boxes in this game at all if that was something you enjoyed. Even when you buy boxes to draft them, you get crushed, and I don't even think the extra loss is worth the draft experience. They pretty much have destroyed that anyways, especially with Spider-Man, which doesn't even have one, and we'll get to that whole pig slop later. Let's just call it that for now. You may have seen that kind of language used recently. But yeah, so format instability. Even though they kind of promised they'd make standard great again, they almost every decision that they've made over the last few years proves otherwise. They're just constantly shooting themselves in the foot, not really making cards that kind of make sense in the metas that are supposed to be coming, and bans don't really fix it, all of that. And yeah, back then, even of all people, Bank of America even chimed in not too long ago, uh, basically telling them that they're destroying the long-term value of their own brand. And Mark Rosewater himself said they were gonna make less, but then the damage was done and determined to be a lie as we head into 2026, as we might have seen in that Timeline, I was just on the previous screen. There's 7 standard sets coming out this 2026, the most of ever, I believe. And yeah, so that becomes more and more apparent every day that WotC, Hasbro, and Mark can't really be trusted anymore. Part 4, Commanderification. It was casual fun, but now it's just a corporate greed machine. Commander was once a casual format built by fans for fun, where basically your bulk cards and your binder could come together to make coherent and fun decks at tables where these cards had no other home. Today, it's basically become Magic's primary design lens, and everything new is incredibly pushed. So it seems like now over 60% of cards are basically built for Commander first. Cards like Darkside Extortionist and Universe Beyond's legendaries pretty much dominate casual tables. Obviously, Darkside Extortionist was banned, and the reason I have it there is to kind of bring up that discussion that not too long ago, Wizards got control of the format because a lot of people said some really hateful stuff, and the people who made Commander, or not maybe not made it per se, but kind of did it outside of Wizards, basically gave it up out of fear, and now the worst possible outcome is Wizards of the Coast now controls Commander. And they were already kind of pretty much powerfuling up everything because of the way that Commander is. But now they're kind of like making that way worse because now you're pretty much getting power creep by design. Deck building pressure is now shoehorning cards in that they make, pretty much specifically for your deck's archetype. It's basically format warping and the quality degradation outside of Commander. So standard, modern, legacy, vintage, all kind of getting messed up by this new design. Casual plays pretty much turned into a competitive arms race. Even if you're trying to play casual, just the sets coming out just gives people so many more powerful tools than their older tools, and it just becomes ridiculous. Uh, Basically, the singleton format of Commander doesn't even feel so singleton because they'll just release a rampant growth and then a strictly better rampant growth and then a strictly better rampant growth that's slightly different than that rampant growth. So you have all these cards that do the same effect but just have basically slightly different, maybe a different name. Just cards that are basically making a singleton format, not even singleton. It's hard to describe in exact words, but I think you'll catch my drift. But yeah, games are ending way sooner, just due to things like easy infinites that come out all the time. Websites like, I think it's like EDH combos or something, things, it's just, there's not a lot of strategy, not a lot of fun to it anymore, in my opinion, because of all those things kind of combined. And it's definitely not healthy for the game. So designs now prioritize pretty much flashy multiplayer tables where people do quote unquote the thing over strategic nuance. It doesn't really help that the thing is also now watered down, where Wizards has basically just made cards for those archetypes that do those, quote unquote things, rather than through player discovery of like, oh man, this new set came out. How can it affect my deck? I can, play around with these new cards. None of them really just shoehorn right into my commander deck. That's how it used to be back then. But yeah, including but not limited to sites dedicated towards the format, like EDH Rec, kind of doing significant damage to pretty much the intrigue of what I found players to be playing when I play Commander, and meet new people. It just seems to be like, oh, I seen that Commander, I know what's coming, and then they play all the cards that you kind of expect them to play. Unlike the early days where pretty much seemingly you'd go to a table and anything was kind of good against anything, more or less. I mean, unless the deck had cards that just straight up countered your deck, and that didn't really have a ton of like legacy and vintage cards in it. If they didn't have those like old, super powerful old cards, they just had like newer cards, then it usually used to be a little bit more even back then. But yeah, so other formats like Standard, Modern, Limited are basically being obliterated in quality year by year as things go forward, because not that, old Magic formats weren't without their issues, but like Commanderification has kind of really sped up that process. So at this point, going back to like 60 card decks in multiplayer, but with Commander and limitation, like only modern legal cards might be like more fun. if you think about it. But it's kind of just a personal opinion I wanted to throw out there. There needs to be some kind of player-made format because Commander ain't it anymore, and especially now that it's under Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro's control, you know. And the little caveat I have is I think well maybe not caveats and night not the right word, but so I have an aside here that basically they made Oathkeeper a format and then pretty much gutted Planeswalkers from the lore and sets, and really says a lot about what they think about formats and how they definitely don't want anything to get in the way of Commander's reign for them to make money. So Commander wasn't really a part of Magic's original blueprint. This was pretty much a glitch in the system, albeit fun at first for many years. Created by some chill judges, players who wanted a slower, more social and random experience. Richard Garfield, Magic's creator, didn't really design the game with the 100 card singleton multiplayer format in that mind, and that matters like incredibly in the long run because Wizards of the Coast made Commander their flagship format. The cracks begin to show in its well-woven rule set and like flow of the game and its player versus player core balance. Like the rules engine wasn't built for multiplayer politics, infinite loops, or like most importantly, its resource system with like lands and the way you play spells, card advantage. The stack, timing, rules, and competitive mechanics were all designed for one versus one. It wasn't really built for any other dynamic. This is why pretty much competitive was the natural way for the game to go, even though the developers didn't really know at the time that they created the game. So Commander's Rise has kind of turned Magic into an almost spectacle first game, a game where people look at their phones and maybe do some casual drinking and yapping, start paying attention maybe when someone gets overlooked and starts becoming a threat. We got all these flashy effects, beyond overtuned creatures, endless loops pretty much dominate the format. Rush, poorly thought out, and paper thin bracket system has pretty much come out to protect egos, and like this all holds it together beneath the surface. But beneath the surface, the game's very core is buckling and breaking because it was never really built for this, game mode. What we're left now with is with a game that feels less like Magic, more like a corporate churn and burn machine. We used to pretend that like the format was legitimate, but it's like very hard now to pretend like it's even a real format because the illusion is basically all gone that it's a format that works at this point. At least for me, I just don't have any more emotional attachment to the game, and especially not this format like it used to. And part five, Magic 30, basically how to stab everyone in the back and pretend like you're doing them a favor. So Magic 30 was meant to honor the game's legacy, and instead it pretty much exposed its priorities. We got $999 collector boxes reprinting the reserve list cards, which sort of, even with gold border to kind of circumvent the reprint policy, it really confused people. They wanted basically $1,000 for what was effectively glorified proxies. Something Wizards themselves seems to hate at the core. Like they really don't want people playing with proxies, but they're going to make $1,000 proxies. Kind of really says a lot there. These cards basically aren't even tournament legal, but they were marketed as commemorative. Like, ooh, fancy, gotta get your Magic 30. Triggering pretty much well-deserved outrage at the price point and borderline uselessness of their creation because, again, they're proxies, basically. And then they included all the awful cards from Alpha Beta as well. So keep that in mind. Magic 30 wasn't even a celebration at all. It's basically a warning, a sign of the coming theme that the game's legacy was now for sale without any remorse. If they truly wanted to celebrate the game's 30-year legacy, in my opinion, they could have made a Masters level set and then sell it for like the regular booster box price with like a large allocation. But instead, they wanted to sell a meager amount of these 30 Magic 30 collector special things for like $1,000, and they're just proxies, but most of which you wouldn't even want to play with as proxies because again they put a bunch of those garbage cards that don't have any playability factor in them in those packs as well. um, if that handling of that situation wasn't bad enough, Look, not even more than 6 months later, a Magic YouTuber known as Dan Cannon of the channel Old School MTG purchased what he believed were booster boxes of the upcoming March of the Machines, basically set from a third party, and unbeknownst to him, the boxes contained unreleased products weeks ahead of their official street date. So, after posting an unboxing video of the product, Cannon reported that Pinkerton agents showed up to his home, and according to his account, they said that they demanded the return of the product. They allegedly intimidated him and his wife, claimed that they were acting on behalf of Wizard of the Coast. So Cannon had no intent of leaking confidential material. He just thought he bought some cards and that were fine. And Wizard of the Coast, could have handled the situation through legal channels, not private enforcement. The optics of sending agents to a civilian's home over trading cards was deeply disturbing and definitely shows the kind of company we see them now as in 2025 and the coming 2026. Wizards of the Coast confirmed the incident but framed it as a necessary step to kind of recover the stolen product. They claimed the cards had been illegally obtained and that the Pinkertons were used to ensure their return. However, they did not clarify how the product ended up in circulation or why they chose such an aggressive enforcement, and that it's in itself is really disturbing. So part six, universes beyond, multiversal collapse and the collapse of the game's identity. Um, so Universes Beyond was kind of pitched as a side project. Mark Rosewater promised it would, remain Magic adjacent, but nearly every major statement he made since has been contradicted. Broken promises by Mark Rosewater have been like, it won't replace Magic's core identity. Now the majority of the releases are crossovers and come 2026 for the standard releases. And multiverse magic is getting more attention than ever, but actually the lore is outsourced to novels and Netflix now, so still not even maintaining the quality of the lore in the novels of yesteryear. I'm talking like Mirrodin, Ravnica, Lorwyn, Shadowmoor. All those novels were absolutely excellent, and I don't think anything that they write or put up now even comes remotely close to the imagination that was put into those worlds. Only 9% of the players strongly dislike it. That's a pretty bad one, given that it ignores the intense widespread fatigue and backlash, missing a wider internet audience that they could be looking at to kind of get a grasp of this, and the fact that this like, where does this statistic come from? If a lot of the players now are not so much the older players as it is like people coming into the game for these universes beyond, that statistic probably makes sense because they're here for the universes beyond. They're not here for Magic. So I don't really know where that statistic even came from in the first place, and nor do I trust it. Cards won't disrupt formats, so Universes Beyond cards are illegal in Commander, Modern, Standard, and because by Standard, it's basically by extent everything. Pretty much causing damage in Standard at the time of this video. We have like VV Cauldron pretty much destroying Standard. They're too afraid to actually act upon that. And basically, pricing will be fair, but Universe Beyond products have been overpriced as based compared to old products of the past, and scalpers have pretty much been having a field day with them, pretty much ruining people's chances to actually get these cards even if they wanted them. So Magic adjacent, but not really because we have Fallout, Spider-Man, Marvel, Star Trek, Jurassic Park, Transformers, Doctor Who, likenesses of actors on cards, and anything set on modern Earth is basically not Magic adjacent, and quite frankly, it's disturbing. Universe Beyond wasn't a side project for what we know as Magic, like they made us believe. It was a calculated and deceptive takeover. We hear from a lot of content creators that this was like the frog in the boiling pot analogy, and it's true. Magic's multiverse is no longer a coherent and well imagined cohesive idea. It has been reduced to nothing but a licensing and, at minimum, a game that can stick anything on top of it any way they choose, which constantly comes about as intellectually and creatively bankrupt as it could be. And it's not a great game anymore, but rather a collectible they wish to profit off at any cost. There's a lot of talk about how we should let people outside or people already within being allowed to enjoy the universe beyond products regardless, but I simply don't agree. These cards are not a celebration of the IP that they are licensing or Magic the Gathering itself. It's just one big heartless scheme meant to separate people from their money because of an emotional attachment. Everyone loses when these cards are involved. I won't pretend like I want these IPs to attract players. It's just not good for the game. Numbers and player numbers, it does not, like, money and player numbers doesn't make a good game. Those are just made up metrics of success. But because why I would want anyone to join in this game in its incredible player hating and joke of a state, like I wouldn't want people, basically I wouldn't want people to play this game the way it is now. So I don't encourage people that like Final Fantasy come play this game because they like Final Fantasy. Because again, it's not a celebration of that IP. It's not a celebration of Magic the Gathering. It's just a way to get people to spend money because of an emotional attachment. No one wins in this situation. I urge new players to stay away from Magic the Gathering, no matter what beloved character they put into it. Friends don't let friends get hurt. Part 7. Permanent and irreversible damage. Why Magic most likely will not recover. From Masters to Horizons to Magic 30 to Universes Beyond, Magic's trajectory is clear. They're designing for profit, not players. Lore has been diluted by external IPs because the internal multiverse has been sabotaged. Formats are warped by power creep. Trust has been eroded by constant broken promises from these figureheads at the company. Greed is beyond just the normal booster box concept now. We have all these other products that are way overpriced, destroying any of the players' ability to buy cards and be happy about what they bought, especially when it comes to buying a regular booster box. Getting rid of any valuable to the consumer and pre-con starter products in favor of more collector items and secret layers. Basically, you can't even get a starter deck that's good anymore, or like well constructed challenger decks. We had like the modern pre-cons that were good at one point. Now your local game store will probably just try to get you to buy a commander deck or some starter commander deck. But there is basically no way as a new player outside of these new like universes beyond like two-player decks that come out, which are like okay, I guess, but again, it just every other previous issue is involved with those, so it's just they're not going to be tournament great. All that stuff is long gone on that subject alone. But yeah, even if Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro reversed course a couple years from now, the damage is likely too deep. The virus of greed, poor design, and Universes Beyond is in the formats to stay for a long term. The magic is gone. The trust is broken. These disastrous and player dividing sets can't just be erased with a wave of a hand, and even if they did, it would only cause more divide and issues. Part 8. Magic is dead. Its soul has already left this mortal plane. Though I am not without hope, this is where indie TCGs come in. So we got some great indie TCGs these days. Solid games with solid visions. We got Grand Archive, represented here by CL Miraj's Grave. We've got a new game that's not even out yet. It's great. You should check it out, called Echoes of Astra, represented here by Blade Wolf Templar. And we've got Prism Awakener of Solar, representative for Flesh and Blood. All three of these games are Kickstarter games, but all three of these games have passionate developers behind them who basically take everything we went over in this presentation and just done the opposite. Or at least plan to do the opposite of what Wizards has gone down, and pretty much completely destroyed their IP and their game at this point moving forward. So Grand Archive, pretty much a streamlined resource system. Grand Archive eliminates the notorious mana screw, mana flood problem from MTG by using a more reliable and flexible resource system, kind of utilizing cards in your hand temporarily, then giving those cards back to you. This makes games feel smoother and less prone to like frustrating dead draws, like you draw a land too late in the game, or you draw too many land early in the game. Though, as any card game, there's still pretty much, there's always going to be a bit of luck when it comes to your hand and what you're drawing. Sorry for the cough. But yeah, so it's got this material deck that's kind of like a MTG's like sideboard and command zone kind of mixed together, but you do get a sideboard in this game as well. Pretty much enables opportunities to choose between like strategic champion leveling for power and regalia access for many choices and utility, adding depth, pretty much without any need for overwhelming complexity. Decks are built around champions with specific classes and elements, allowing for this modular creativity and the ability to stick your favorite character, kind of stick to them and try them out in various builds. The structure encourages archetype fusion and thematic synergy, so you can do all these things to pretty much try your character in multiple different ways to win. It's accessible yet deep, good set sizes with the ability to not have to worry about dropping 7 sets a year on your head, a comfortable release schedule. It seems about, I'm relatively new to the scene, but there's like about 4 months per set, so it's not gonna, there's not gonna be product overload on you. You're gonna be able to really pick up and play with these cards in the amount of time you wish. It's kind of got this great indie ethos and like player first design. It's developed by a small team in Houston. Grand Archive pretty much champions transparency and community engagement. Its growth feels like organic and player driven, contrasted with like the modern WotC and Hasbro's corporate amalgamation they got going there. Um, we got stunning anime inspired artwork. Grand Archive invests heavily into its visuals. It has like a cohesive, high quality aesthetic that really appeals to collectors and players alike. It doesn't really bother creating situations of questionable and crunched artist pressure and like strict guidelines these artists have to follow that have really poisoned today's magic art. It's got these cards that are designed for like readability and clarity. They actively avoid like these cluttered or cryptic like text blocks that you can find in MTG now in our current year of 2025. Though I would say there's some exceptions to that. Like these cards, like there are some wordy cards on Grand Archive. I'm thinking of like the dual faced Sacred Beast cards. Those are pretty wordy, but it's just pretty much so that the cards can function in the first place. But they're easy to understand regardless, in my opinion. But yeah, so this improves accessibility to new players and kind of speeds up the gameplay, given the many routes you're able to take when you're playing the game. It's pretty nice. A lot of options in this game. And then we have Echoes of Astra. This game is kickstarted until Thursday, October 9th at 9:57 a.m. Eastern Daytime. Um, I checked out this game. It's really cool. It plays kind of like Riftbound and Magic the Gathering, with its resource system being a little bit better than Magic the Gathering, in my opinion. You can put any card face down, and it basically turns that face down card into a mana for just any card because you pick two colors in this game, put them together. But when you make a mana this way, you also draw a card, so you're never going down a card to produce mana in this game, essentially, from a Magic the Gathering player's perspective. You can still get in on it. You can still fund it. Highly recommend that you do. I actually have a lot of faith in this game. It has like this control point gameplay that's similar to like what we're seeing by other more modern trading card games, but it's got a lot to stand on its own, especially given the art and the setting. I think it kind of knocks the others out of the game, in my opinion, especially because everything's just so clean and straightforward written, and the mechanics would be very familiar from a Magic player, But there's stuff to learn even as a Magic player. You're not going to just be an expert day one, though it certainly helps, I would say, if you're a Magic player. Heck, I think this game could probably even outdo Riftbound if it really wants to. It may even steal that pie from Riftbound if people, you know, forget that forget League of Legends IP. You don't really need that to make it a good game. A good game should stand on its own. Essentially, I have a lot of faith in this game. It's very cool. You can do print and play, and you can also play on the TTS or Tabletop Simulator. That's what that's short for. You can go on there. They have an official mod for it, and you can do a lot of different cool things in that little mod just on their first set of cards. They're still got prototype cards and art and placeholder arts on some cards, but a lot of what they've done is excellent. And there's no AI art here, just real artists making really awesome cards in a very cool setting. And I'd like to see this go very far and see more settings and more cool characters. And yeah, so please check out these games. I'm not going to cover Flesh and Blood too much. I don't know a terrible lot about Flesh and Blood, personally speaking, but I do recommend it. I have friends that really like it. I see it played at LGSs all the time. It has awesome art, way better than Magic's current art. It reminds me of like that mid 2010s Magic art that was just really high quality, really high detail, gritty, dark sometimes, kind of Magic the Gathering style art we saw like with Innistrad, Return to Ravnica, like that time period. Oh, I love it. And I think I think if the gameplay of Flesh and Blood was different, I'd probably enjoy it more, but that's not saying you won't. So check that out if you want to. And the only other thing I can recommend is you can be your own indie dev. And I'm not just talking about you can just make your own card game, but you can make your own Magic the Gathering sets. And that's something that I put a lot of effort into and I really enjoy thanks to Magic Set Editor and all the templates you can download. I'll probably put a link to all these other games, including my own fun little Magic the Gathering sets down in the description of this video. But basically, I really think we should start supporting indie, quit supporting these AAA companies like, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Tencent. We should really be giving um, indies our money because just like in the video game world, indies are killing it, but AAA is just they've lost the bag. They have no idea what they're doing anymore, and they know how to make money. That's what they're doing, but they're not. And even then, that's not going to last forever. So, to quote a wizard that's popular on the internet, I'm not gonna exact quote him, but I'm gonna say, "For the love that is, for the love that all is holy, for the love that all is holy." Oh man, this is hard to say, isn't it? For the love that, no man, I'm having a hard time. For the love of all that is holy, sell your magic collections, uninstall MTG Arena, and have a good day.